Colleagues, can you hear me? Hello?
Recording in progress.
Good morning, honorable members.
Morning, Chair.
Then, because I can tell you, maybe let me first apologize where I am. There might be some unpleasant noises, but let me declare the meeting officially open and welcome our guests from the Human Rights Commission, and welcome honorable members. Portfolio Committee Secretary, any apologies?
Good morning, everybody. Chairperson, we've received apologies from both deputy ministers that won't be available to make the meeting this morning. There's also some of the members that still struggling to connect, but they are busy connecting to the platform, Chairperson. That's the only apologies that we've received. We do have a quorum for the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me formally welcome Advocate Bongani Majola, who is chairperson of the commission, Commissioner Pili Lenduli, and Mr. Gao, and the CEO, or Mr. Mkize, the CEO, P.S. Moodi, and Ms. Fadla Adams, who is also PLO of the commission. As already indicated, Fridays are critical for members. There's a lot of traveling, but this is an important topic for us as members of the Portfolio Committee. So I would like to welcome the commission and immediately indicate that looking at the documents, unfortunately, I'm new in the committee in the context of that conference. I was not part of it, but it was a rich conference. Now we have an opportunity for us to be properly briefed about the outcome of the conference, and I'm sure we'll be able to compare notes as to how best we can deal with this. So by those few words, I would like to welcome you and immediately ask the commission to brief us as indicated. That's the only item in the agenda. Over to you, Chairperson.
Safety remains our top priority.
Thank you, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and honorable members of the committee. We are most grateful to get this opportunity today, of course, to appear before you and brief you on the work that we have done on a topic that is very important these days in South Africa. My name is Bongani Majola, but I'm no longer going to introduce the delegation from the Commission because you very kindly introduced the delegation on my behalf. The opportunity to appear before the Portfolio Committee is, of course, greatly appreciated. And your granting us the audience is most encouraging. We requested to brief this committee following, of course, the local government conference that you have referred to, which was also addressed by His Excellency, the President of South Africa. We would like to brief members of the committee and yourself, Chairperson, of the systematic challenges in local government sector. The report that we have submitted makes certain recommendations which we would also like to highlight because we think that some of them may be of importance to you. clearly the solution to the local government and service delivery problems lies in approaching the problem from all angles, including the oversight angle, which is where we are today, and the constant monitoring and feedback angle, which is where we come from. So without further ado, and understanding the limited time, I would like just to stop here and ask Commissioner Nduli and Peace Momohodi, who are the focus area colleagues who deal with local government every minute and every hour and every day, to take over. Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson Majola, and thank you to the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. Good morning to the honorable members. Chairperson, I also just want to recognize the presence of other commissioners, including Commissioner Nissen, as well as Commissioner Sibanyoni, the CEO of the South African Human Rights Commission, is also present with us. And they may also be in a position to add during the very crucial discussions that we are hoping to have with yourselves today. Chairperson and honorable members, we are indeed, as indicated by the Chairperson of the Human Rights Commission, very pleased to be here this morning. This engagement is coming in the backdrop, especially of the release of the census report, which shows us and paints a very clear picture of where we are in terms of the provision of basic services. And we are seeing that over the trajectory of this constitutional democracy, there has been an increase in access to basic services. There's an increase in access to formal housing, to piped water. But of course, there are still some significant challenges. And for us, what concerns us mainly is access to socioeconomic rights. Issues around bucket toilet systems, the prevalence of pit latrine toilets is still quite a challenge in many areas, especially rural areas. And these are some of the issues that we are hoping we will deliberate on with yourselves this morning. But of course, without taking up too much time, I want to then hand over to Peace Momohodi, who will walk us through the presentation, and thereafter we can have the deliberations. I do also just want to recognize Honorable Chairperson that representatives from MISA, including the acting CEO, are here, and we are pleased that they are. As a commission, we work quite closely with MISA. We were in engagement with the ministry, including MISA, last night on similar issues pertaining to challenges at local government level. So we are hoping that this engagement will be fruitful and it will lead us to close our working relations with yourselves. Over to you, Pismo, through you, Chairperson.
Good morning, Chairperson of the committee. I hope I'm audible. And honorable members, good morning.
You are audible.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. With your permission and indulgence, Chair, I will kindly request to just switch off my video for the purposes of bandwidth as I will be presenting. Maybe it may just affect connectivity. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, Chair, and good morning once again to the Chairperson and honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, and our Chairperson and Commissioners, CEO, and CEO of MISA as well, and all protocol observed. As introduced, my name is Peace Momohodi. I'm one of the research advisors at the Human Rights Commission, working closely on issues of local government. And so I will have the privilege to just take the Portfolio Committee through the presentation, which really in essence is a summary of the 55-page report that the Commission produced following its conference that it hosted in August 2022. Just on the table of contents, just to give you maybe signposts in terms of how the presentation will unfold today. It will be divided into 4 sections, Honorable Chair and honorable members. The first one is the background and context, which in academic parlance, we can say it's the problem statement that led us to convening the conference, and then the second one will be the rationale for the conference, followed by some of the recommendations that emanated from the conference and just a few concluding remarks. So without further ado, let me just move swiftly to the background and context of the scenario that led us to convening the conference. So as Honorable Chair and honorable members, you are aware of the mandate of the Commission, so I won't really spell it out that much, save to indicate that the Commission is established in terms of Section 184 to dispense with justice without fear of favor and in the promotion, protection, and monitoring of human rights. So we have the protection mandate through which we receive a number of complaints, and unfortunately, service delivery related complaints have consistently remained in the top 5 human rights complaints that have been lodged with the Commission over the last few years. And some of the complaints really range from issues of poor provision of community services such as water and housing, issues of sewer spillages, issues of wastewater treatment challenges, as well as issues of non-collection of refuse and unattended potholes on the roads. And you will obviously immediately note that these are issues that fall within, largely within the competence of the local sphere of government. And we have also noted that there is a correlation between challenges in service delivery and the spike in protest-related action at the municipal level, which obviously, unfortunately, that kind of protest-related action at times often turns violent. And it's something that obviously we need to work around collectively to try and address. And without really going into much in-depth detail, it's common cause really that the local sphere of government is in dire straits, as indicated by the State of the Local Government Report of 2022, which highlights quite a significant number of municipalities that are dysfunctional, and also the municipalities, fortunately, that have increased to a stable situation, around 30 are stable, which I think is a jump from 16 in the previous year. So it shows that there are some gains, but nonetheless, there are still significant challenges. Moving to the next slide, here we just paint a picture that the Auditor General has also painted, which points to regression, particularly on the issue of how the municipalities are handling the finances that are given to them. So obviously some of the systemic issues are issues of poor financial skills and lack of accountability, issues of leadership instabilities in local municipalities, mostly as a result of the high number of hung councils, which obviously has a bearing on the issues around service delivery, and also the issues of a high culture of irregular and fruitless wasteful expenditure, which obviously does have an impact because funds that would have ordinarily gone towards delivering basic services then are lost in this leakage. And then there's also a concerning culture of non-performance, which I think even the Auditor General, as recent as June this year, did indicate that there are some municipal functions that are outsourced to service providers, whereas there are people within municipalities that are actually employed to do this kind of work. For instance, issues around the finance aspects, where we have quite a high number of consultants which are recruited to do a financial reporting, but still there's no value for money. And then obviously there is just a concerning issue of general non-adherence to legislative prescripts, which still persist within the sphere of local government. And then obviously, as I indicated, that the Commission is mandated by Section 184 to receive complaints and process them. So we have convened quite a number of inquiries, which you'll see in the next slide. But these inquiries really point to issues of insufficient attention being paid by the local sphere of government to issues around water and sanitation infrastructure. For instance, only about 4% of the budget of municipalities is being used for maintenance, which is really a far cry from the norm of 8%, which the National Treasury has set, which although is discretionary, but I think it's quite a good threshold. And I think the report of the Commission, which it has just recently released regarding the issue of water service authorities in KZN, also laments the inadequate attention to operation and maintenance by municipalities. And we have also noted that municipalities that are water service authorities, quite a number of them battle with myriad challenges such as lack of sufficient skills. And I think MISA has also noted this as well in its numerous reports, and they are working obviously to try and address issues of capacity there, and also issues of failure to adequately spend grants, which has a bearing. We note that some municipalities actually use the MIG grant to pay staff of salary staff, which is obviously against the prescripts, and also issues of failure to maintain and keep updated water services development plans, which actually in terms of the Water Services Act is a requirement, it's mandatory. And then the next slides are Honorable Chair and Honorable Members is just a list of some of the investigations that the Commission has conducted, empowered by its mandate. And so I won't really dwell much into these. These are all available on the Commission's website. Then I will just move then to the next slide. And here we just indicate that as of January 2023, we had noted that there are about quite a number of municipalities. 33 were under interventions in terms of Section 139, with municipalities in Northwestern KZN being the ones that have a high list of interventions, which obviously is concerning for the Commission, because we always view Section 139 rather as a measure of last resort, and we would like at least Section 154, which prescribes a duty of support on the provincial and national sphere on local government to be the one which is a measure of first resort. And then obviously having sketched the background and context, which is more or less the problem statement, then the Commission decided actually to convene a conference on the 31st of August to the 1st of September, just to serve as a broad spectrum for stakeholders to collectively deliberate on these critical issues which are facing the local government sphere, because we view the sphere of local government as one of the important spheres of government, because socioeconomic rights are quite a number of them at the epicenter of the local sphere of government. So they are felt and enjoyed there. So we cannot really afford to have that sphere fail. So we then obviously convened that conference with the aim to just deliberate and find out what can be done to take this sphere out of the situation which it finds itself in. So we then had quite a number of stakeholders ranging from government, the legislature, Chapter 9 institutions, academia, and civil society, who all participated in this part of co-creating ideas to turn the situation or the trajectory of the local sphere of government around. And our president did deliver a keynote address there in that conference, and he also did acknowledge that actually the local sphere of government is in a crisis, and there is really a need to massively review the local sphere of government to ensure that it is fit for purpose, and we turn the trajectory around. And then obviously, as I said, that this is just a summary of that 55-page report, which I think Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, you have had the opportunity to look at. And so the recommendations from this conference are really advisory in nature, because they were not undertaken through the mandate of the Commission to protect human rights, but rather they were mostly in the promotion aspect. So they are advisory in nature. So one of the key recommendations that emanated from the conference was the issue or the need to professionalize the local government sphere. And there was even a suggestion that actually maybe issues around creating maybe minimum educational requirements should be looked into, because this won't be unique to South Africa, as jurisdictions such as the United States of America do actually have these kind of requirements, so that at least we have people who are capable in the right position. And then the second recommendation was the issue of reviewing the finances, and the issue of just reviewing the equitable share model, because there is largely a concern that the equitable share model is not really as equitable as the name suggests. So there is a need maybe to look at that, because in terms of DORA, I think the local sphere of government only gets something like 9 or 10% of the fiscus, yet it's meant to actually service quite a number of socioeconomic rights and progressively realize them. And there was also a call that maybe there is a need to be dynamic and avoid adopting a one-size-fits-all approach, because, for instance, the needs of a rural municipality may not necessarily be the same as the needs of an urban municipality. So a one-size-fits-all approach is quite detrimental to the developmental agenda of the local sphere of government, and also issues of integrated planning and budgeting, which is human rights centered, were also recommended, and issues of also partnerships with external actors such as the private sector, so that then you unlock funding opportunities, noting the shrinking fiscus that the country is experienced, and also the issue of maybe having performance-linked grants, so that then you incentivize those who are high performers to perform, and those who are non-performers to also perform. So those were some of the recommendations that flow from the conference. Then the other recommendation was the realization that actually an active citizenry is non-negotiable. So we need community participation in the affairs and governance of the local sphere of government, particularly during IDPs and consultations, so that then we avoid these kind of service delivery protests, which unfortunately are turning violently, largely due to issues of information gap between government and the communities. So obviously there was that suggestion as well, because that will inspire increased confidence in government, because there is currently a trust deficit between the elected representatives and those who elected them to office. The other issue was the importance of the sphere of academia, because they do have a wealth of resources, and then as well as research expertise. So they need to obviously come to the party as well and impact that knowledge, so that we can benefit from it. And then there was also a recommendation around community media, because it's a powerful vehicle to actually communicate and empower communities to be more actively engaged. And obviously it's in local languages, so it's easy for people to at least relate with and be able to access information in the language that they are able to understand, so that issues of IDPs can also be communicated to them in a much more simpler and clear manner. And then the second last recommendation was the fact that we are already in the throes of a climate change, with obviously predictions of more upheavals regarding climate change, given the recent erratic weather patterns that we have seen. For instance, the floods disasters in 2022, as well as actually as recent as this year as well. So there is a need for the local sphere of government to be equipped to deal with these disasters, so that they are able to respond and mitigate. So we obviously indicated when we briefed the floods ad hoc joint committee on floods, that actually there were challenges within the sphere of local government, where they were not able to respond more as effectively as they should have to the floods. So we hope that obviously that can be addressed going forward. And then the last recommendation, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, was the need for oversight and support on this to the sphere of local government. And here we talk about issues of consequence management for poor performance, where those who are not performing, there should be consequences, so that at least they can be able to perform more effectively. And also, as I did indicate initially, that there was emphasis on Section 154 rather, to be a measure of first resort, and Section 139 to be a measure of last resort. And in that regard, we also happy that actually the Intergovernmental Monitoring Support and Interventions Bill is actually before this August House for processing, and we hope that it can also address those challenges, because there was a view that sometimes Section 139 is politicized, and at times even municipalities that are placed under Section 139 do end up regressing, and you don't really see any change. And then just to move to the some concluding remarks, Honorable Chair and Honorable members, We note that obviously service delivery protests are an indicator that there is a need for focused attention on the local sphere of government. So protests are really a barometer of the levels of dissatisfaction with failures in the sphere of local government. And so obviously we need concrete and practical solutions to deal with the challenges that the sphere is faced with. And as I said, that we are also glad that this intergovernmental monitoring support and interventions bill is before this August House for processing, and it's also crucial that it's processed. And then lastly, as I did indicate, that local government sphere is an important sphere of government because it operates where people live, and it operates in a space where basic human rights such as water and sanitation and electricity need to be actualized. So for people to live a life of dignity. So this sphere cannot be allowed to fail. It is an important sphere of government, and all hands should be on deck to address it. With those remarks and that presentation, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, thank you so much. I hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I assume that all members of the Portfolio Committee first appreciate the fact that we have got this primary responsibility to engage the executives in the three spheres on behalf of the people. That implies asking difficult questions. And we are also custodians of the law or laws that govern the country, and specifically laws that relate to local government. So I think the topic itself is quite critical, and one would assume that this should be the start of us engaging seriously, especially on issues that have been raised, and especially at this time of the year. I will allow members to engage with the topic and take their hands as they come. I can see Honorable Smale is the first one. It looks like I see your hand and yourself. Can I allow you to speak, Honorable Smale?
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and my appreciation to the Human Rights Commission. I do see the Human Rights Commission being a critical watchdog within our society, and sometimes putting pressure onto some of our fears of government institutions. But maybe because as one of the persons that have laid or have approached the South African Human Rights Commission often and laid various complaints with the Human Rights Commission around issues that affect people. And so when we look at the Limpopo water reports, I would then ask myself, to the Human Rights Commission, as a claimant in some of these claims, why would the claimant not be awarded, let's say, the report by the Human Rights Commission, but if the report is finalized, it would then appear, maybe say, on your various platforms for engagement. But why would you not give the claimant direct access right in the beginning on that topic? We laid, or I personally laid.
Am I the only one who can't hear Honorable Smite?
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yes.
Chairperson. So in question in short to the Human Rights Commission is then to say, why would the claimants not receive the reports as a claimant who lays a claim or lodged a claim, a appeal or an issue with the Human Rights Commission? Why would you just be notified that the Human Rights Commission is investigating the matter, but the outcome of that investigation is then not being communicated to the complainant? Secondly, with reference to putting a fear of government on terms, I find it sometimes, especially when we look at when water drinkable water is being. Second thing is when your education system is putting on immense pressure, and this I will give effect to. There was a situation in Greater Letaba municipality where a wall collapsed on two learners, a school wall, and subsequently two children would passed on. And then you would think of a situation where you lay a complaint and you are worried about the safety of learners, and you would think that stronger terms would be placed by the Human Rights Commission. So I'm just, the question would then be, how often, or does the Human Rights Commission actually put a fear of government on very strict terms to rectify a situation that impacts impact society? And if so, is there a report or a circular that can be given to the committee of some proposals maybe in the last year or 2 years where we actually have put a fear of government on terms? Because holding the executive accountable place a very strong emphasis on our ability to function within the portfolio committee or as members of parliament. And you do sometimes see the ability by a fear of government not being able to rectify a situation, but rectifying a situation talks about the commitment by government to, over a NTF period, to resolve certain issues, and that it allows members then to monitor government's progress over that period. And a very good example of that is when we had children in our in South Africa, in Limpopo and Eastern Cape, that fell in pit latrine toilets that passed on, and which led to a court case which resolved that pit latrines should be phased out over an X period of time. And that was a distinct example of where government was put on two terms and government had to reprioritize its services. But I would definitely want to speak around how we deal, especially on the water report. If you even evaluate the Blue Drop report, you will note that only 26% of our local authorities do comply with clean, safe drinking water. And your role as the South African Human Rights Commission in that space, Hammanskraal was a good example the other day that are now fresh in our minds. And I don't think Hammanskraal is isolated in our society. So, Chair, just maybe in principle, if we can have one or two simple answers on that, and then hopefully a sort of a report then that will follow on where government was put on terms. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Spies.
Good morning, Chairperson. And good morning to the presenters and also our guests in the meeting and to my colleagues. Am I audible, Chair?
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay, thank you. First of all, Chair, allow me to thank the Commission for the work done. I also take note that it was said that the recommendations is advisory in nature. And although a lot of what has been shared with us this morning is not new, it is extremely valuable information. And for me, it cannot just be in an advisory nature, which I understand. I understand the the Commission's mandate and objective. But I want to, Chairperson, make a few comments on this and also maybe get a feeling of what the view from the Commission is on the things that I would like to mention. The South African Human Rights Commission, as well as other Chapter 9 institutions, I believe their findings should have an impact on Section 139 processes as a combination, I think. For instance, if a combination of conditions exist, firstly, Section 139 being considered, and then secondly, adverse findings from 2 or more Chapter 9 institutions, then I think 2 or 3 must happen. And as an example, Chair, I want to mention that municipal managers and directors receive comments on their employment records that must be disclosed in future applications for employment. And Chair, it should also be a disqualifying criteria for such. Then furthermore, disciplinary procedures must be implemented against implicated officials and department heads, I believe, which findings must remain part of the employment records for 7 years. And then secondly, Chair, Chapter 9 institutions can apply to court to have sanctions enforced on implicated effective officials. I want to, in that regard, understand what the view is from the Commission on that and, in their engagements and interactions. Then very little is mentioned by the Commission, knowing that they work within municipalities a lot or handle issues investigations that is happening within municipalities. There is little mention made by the Commission of the district development model, which seems to be a fixer for what is happening in the state of local government. And I also would just like to hear the view of the Commission on that, Chairperson. But all in all, I think the information that is presented to us must be used in combination with a number of stakeholders that has been before this committee, so that we can actually have a practical and workable plan of action, and not only have matters that comes to us in this fashion, which is extremely valuable, but it's advisory for us. And with that, I'm not saying that we don't appreciate it. I do appreciate it. I think going through the report, it is exactly the things that we as a committee, when we go on oversight, experienced on numerous occasions. And we need to now put our heads together as to how we're going to use this information to change the state of local government very, very urgently, Chairperson. So thank you. And once again, thank you to the presenter.
Thank you very much. Honorable Peza, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you to the colleagues who spoke before me. And thank you very much to SAHC, the South African Human Rights Commission. Chair, perhaps we need to ask ourselves a question: how did we get here at a crisis point, wherein now we have to react rather than having had from the inception of the a white paper on local government. Perhaps we should start there and begin to locate some of the historical issues of local government at the initial stages of the establishment of these wall-to-wall municipalities, as proposed there in the white paper. The so-called mini constitution by those who were doing it at the time. I think it's around 2002, somewhere there where they commented about it. An assumption that was made was that the municipalities would be able to have substantial sums of money they needed to service charges without an appreciation of historic poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. It assumed that sufficient revenue would be generated to ensure sustainable. There's someone who is disturbing me, Chair. Can you protect me, please?
Who that one is, please, let's not disturb. Continue, Honorable Fraser.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. The white paper assumes that sufficient revenue would be generated to ensure substantial sustainable municipalities, that there would be adequate funds from transfers of national and provinces. Lastly, that an atmosphere of cooperation and trust between municipalities and communities will be led by these municipalities. Here, the reality is to the total contrary. We're sitting here with municipalities at 66 from 64, as we heard from the Auditor General, from 64 to 66 that are dysfunctional. 107 municipalities that are at medium risk, only 30 of them were stable. Now, how does the human rights proposes these relations in terms of slide 8, the review of the equitable share model? How does it then shape without appreciating the division of revenue formulae in terms of its own assumption and the historical municipalities from apartheid that were 1,993 during apartheid, and when local government started in 1996, there were 883, and throughout they have been trimmed down to 336, and now 257 municipalities. With the proposed new municipalities, as we heard yesterday from the presentation, that there are new municipalities that are proposed. How does it the Human Rights Commission reconcile those? Secondly, Chair, I am interested in the professionalization of local government, because I think that we amended the Systems Act that there shouldn't be first an atmosphere of political interference at the municipal level. The municipal managers that are accountable to the municipal manager must be on a permanent basis. We agreed here in the committee, and we can see that throughout that they are being employed permanently, so that they stabilize institutional memory and so forth. How does the Human Rights Commission propose that? What minimum education qualifications does it propose in the context of South Africa? And secondly, how does that happen without appreciating that people came from the political party, and it is political parties that should propel and ensure oversight over its members, that the members themselves are educated or are in some institution of learning and improving themselves, but also to have a responsibility to what is it called, to self develop, you know. How does it make sure that the political parties get this message that they are recommending to us? And I think that that's what is central. People come from political parties, and the kind of electoral system that we're using, people are voted for, and they come to that. And as a result, we are stuck with almost 300 councillors that are illiterate, that cannot read and write in KZN only, meaning that they can't process the statute books. As much as local government is highly legislated, they can't read. They can't tell you that the Human Rights Commission is on Section 184 of the Constitution and so forth, which is a crisis on its own in local government. And so, how does the Human Rights propose that this one should the minimum educational qualification, and that political parties from whom these public representatives come from get it that they should be educated and they should obtain minimum education qualifications. The last one, very last one, Chair, is that whether they do get some human rights abuses that happen that are at the hands of the CRL Rights Commission, at the hands of the municipal demarcation, all the entities of Cooperative, so that they reconcile into a report that is public, because they also help me. They help us a lot as public representatives in terms of the statistics. I always refer to them, particularly as a Chapter 9 institution. Do they get the reports? Did they get the reports of the petitions that came to the committee, and what are they doing about them? Because there are petitions from Emalahleni, which is now in the Eastern Cape. Both in the Eastern Cape, there's Malahleni, and there's Malahleni in Witbank, in Mpumalanga. And then there is Amatole district, which is sitting with a problem since 2016 of providing water, such that the taps now are being vandalized. Do they have those issues? Because I can see in their presentation they have, but Eastern Cape is not there, and so forth, and Witbank is not there, and Witbank Emalahleni is not there in Mpumalanga. Those are my submissions and my questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you to the South African Human Rights Commission.
Thank you very much, Honorable Banshaba.
Hey, Chair, I'm trying to.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, hi, Chair, No, it's fine. Let me, Chair, close my. Sorry, Chair. Can I close my?
Yes, allowed.
Okay,
allowed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to you, Chair, and all protocol observed. Chair, let me welcome the presentation and thank for the Human Rights Commission, the job that they've done to the South Africans, to South Africa in the country. Chair, many of issues they've been asked by my colleagues, which I upload on that, Chair. So my first question to the Human Rights Chair, it will be a problem that we are sitting with in South Africa for people hijacking buildings within metros, Chair. I can mention maybe 3 or 4 of them. that I know, it's Tswane. There are buildings that are hijacked by people of South Africa, including by people of outside the foreigner nationally and the people of South Africa. And in Johannesburg, Chair, Eguruleni, eThekwini, Chair. My question to the human rights is that what measures they have been put in place to make sure that the human rights defend these hijack building, so that we will be not having many people die unnecessary, because those buildings, Chair, they are not maintained. They are not even, there's no compliance in those buildings. But the human rights people, the people are staying there, which is not humane. My question is that, Chair, how best this, or which plan does the human rights have to make sure that there will be no one hijack buildings, that the building is not, there is no compliance within the building because people are dying. Another thing, Chair, another question, Chair, has the commission being follow up on the recommendation maintaining from the local government service delivery related response issued over the last 5 years? Chair, as per the conference, I don't know whether my colleague has been asked this thing, but let me put it, if it's that, I'm standing to be corrected, Chair. As the conference's recommendation, what are the proposed minimum education requirement for municipality public office bearers that will be most relevant to the South African context? And Chair, regarding the, I think my colleague has been asked this one. Let me stop there, Chair. Or is that all my questions? That one, or also the recommendation of not the no, not the recommendation, Chair. It was a question. Sorry, Chair. Thank you.
So, for now, that concludes the questions. Maybe what is critical is to indicate the context of why have we asked the commission to make the presentation. Is because their report was tabled to the speaker, and the speaker referred the report to the portfolio committee. Of course, generally, most of the issues raised here are the issues the committee is grappling with. And except where maybe the mandate of the commission is very clear in terms of the rights that people are troubled with across the country. So in other words, generally, most of these issues are familiar with the committee. I think what is critical is what needs to be done, which I think the conference itself was grappling with that. And I'm sure now in the context of oversight by the committee, that question is going to be very critical. So in other words, whilst members have been raising issues, the intention is to sharpen what needs to be done in the context of the committee, in the context of the commission, and any other Chapter 9 institutions relating to how the executive is executing their task. I would then allow the commission to respond to some of the issues raised, but I'm trying to put a context to say We not necessarily, but we wanted to hear it from yourselves so that you can as well develop an approach as the portfolio committee as to what needs to be done. Actually, it's a general question across the country because everybody agrees local government is closer to the people, and unfortunately, that's how people perceive governance. They are looking at who is closer to them and what are they doing. So one would allow the commission chairperson, you might lead and then guide as to who deals with what. Over to you. Yes, in fact, when I say chairperson, I mean anybody who is leading the commission made outline as to how do you want to respond to some of the issues, comment on some of them. Like I'm saying, whilst they can be phrased as questions, it's a collective issue, and unfortunately for us, that becomes our primary responsibility when we must engage the executive on behalf of the people. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson Majola just called me to indicate that he's dealing with a crisis in the office. And therefore, Chairperson, I must thank you very much for the questions. I must also thank you for giving us the opportunity to engage with yourself. As you have suggested, Chairperson, I wonder if we can be given the time as the commission to just divide some of the responses amongst ourselves before we then return to respond to the questions.
No, that will be fine.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wonder how that can be done within the auspices of the arrangement of the meeting, Chair. Perhaps what we can do, Chair, is I am noting that Commissioner Gaum is here, Commissioner Nissen is here, Commissioner Sibanyoni is here, as well as the CEO is also here. Chairperson, on the question asked by Honorable Smole, especially on issues around pit latrine and the safety of learners, I will ask Commissioner Gaum to kindly lead us in responding to that question. On the question of how often the South African Human Rights Commission puts government on terms, and related to that, the question around the claimants or the complainants and their right to also receive the outcomes of investigations, I will deal with that, but I will also ask Commissioner Sibanyoni, who heads our internal legal subcommittee, to also come in there, especially to speak around the difference between our reports, Honorable Spy. We are empowered to conduct a various number of functions, including investigations, but also to conduct research. This conference in particular was not an investigative exercise, but rather an information gathering exercise under the powers of conducting research that we are empowered by the Constitution to conduct, which is why it renders this report in particular and its recommendations advisory in nature. But I will ask Commissioner Sibanyoni to kindly expand on that. Then on the question of how did we get here, and the question of wall-to-wall municipalities vis-a-vis the proposals for even further new municipalities, Commissioner Nissen, who heads our civil and political rights portfolio, may come in on that question. Then there are other questions, there is the Honorable Eza. Then there are questions around the hijacking of buildings and the proposed minimum requirements. I will also gladly just speak to that. Perhaps let me start with Commissioner Baum, thereafter Commissioner Spanioli, thereafter Commissioner Nissen, and I will come in at the end to also cover some of these other questions. There was also the question around the DDM, Honorable Spies, which I also have not forgotten, and we will also address that. Colleagues, then I will hand over to yourself, Commissioner Baum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Tuli, and good morning again to all the members of Parliament, honourable members. I will respond to the pit latrine issue as mentioned by Commissioner Tuli, and also deal with the issue of whether we have reports and so on where we have put government on terms and how that works. So the Commission's mandate is to promote, protect human rights as well as to monitor human rights. So the protection mandate comes in when there are allegations of a violation of human rights, and then under those circumstances, the Commission would do one of three things basically. If possible, and if the circumstances allow that, we can mediate the matter and make use of negotiation, mediation, and conciliation. Otherwise, there are two options remaining to the Commission. The one is to investigate the matter and then obviously to issue a report. And in that report, then to make recommendations, issue directives. That is, it is the Commission's view that we make findings about human rights violations, that those findings are indeed binding, and that we can issue binding directives. And we have issued binding directives in a number of instances, and I think it is a very good idea, and this might be the beginning of that where the Commission has delivered reports in the past or delivers reports in future that has an impact on cooperative governance, specifically also municipalities, that those reports are made available to this portfolio committee to follow up on. And I want to commend the committee for actually having this engagement with the Commission following receiving this particular report from the Speaker. That is indeed a very good step ahead. So we should perhaps then also have a look at reports that we have issued in the last, let's say, year or two, or even more than that, and make those available to the committee in so far as it has an impact on cooperative governance, especially municipalities. The other option that the Commission also have is obviously to litigate. And in the context of pit latrines, I can inform the committee, the portfolio committee, that the Commission has done quite a bit of work in that regard. In 2021, we wrote to all the provinces to ask them very specific details per school pertaining to pit latrines and what the situation is in terms of water and sanitation at every single school in the province. We received a reply from the provinces, and at that stage we contemplated potential litigation, but we've decided to rather at this stage follow up, and earlier this year we followed up again, wrote to the provinces where there are indeed specific problems with regard to pit latrines and asked them for updates. Some of them responded, others asked for extensions, which were provided, and then they responded, and there were also provinces that did not respond at all. So the Commission is contemplating what our next step would be. It might indeed be litigation in respect of provinces where there is not reasonable progress as far as pit latrines are concerned, and also against provinces that did in fact not reply to the Commission. The last point I think I want to make here is that I think we raised it with the minister last night as well when we had the meeting with her, that there might be the potential for a role also for municipalities in assisting schools with regard to water and sanitation, the schools within their boundaries. And that is maybe something that one can discuss further, that every municipality take on a role in seeing how they can also assist schools from their side, even though it is primarily the responsibility of the Department of Basic Education with the assistance of Public Works. So I want to leave that idea with you. I hope I've more or less answered the question. So yes, we do sometimes put governments on terms in letters, and flowing from that, get involved in litigation, but we also do issue reports, and depending on the circumstances, sometimes it contain recommendations, sometimes specific directives to government departments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gaum, Commissioner Sibanyoni, and thereafter Commissioner Nisa.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Ntuli, chairperson of us, and then I want to greet each and everyone. I'm responding to the differences, sanctions, as the Commissioner Ntuli has said that I must focus on our powers. I will try not to repeat what Commissioner Gaum has said in giving the response. But our constitutional mandate as the Human Rights Commission is clearly spelled out by Section 184 of the Constitution. And I will also want to emphasize that the claims or the complaints are received by our various offices spread throughout the length and breadth of the country in the various provinces. And then us as the commissioners resolve that there should be a legal committee of commissioners that will look at the motivation or the request for litigation. And I am the chairperson of the legal committee of commissioners. And then we look at the request for litigation that comes from the various provinces. And then if we feel that indeed the rights have been violated, the legal committee of commissioners then recommends to the full body of commissioners who will then thereafter approve that the litigation should ensue or take place. And it will be amiss if I don't also mention that as the South African Human Rights Commission, we've got the power or the function which is spelled out by Section 184, subsection 2, subsection B of the Constitution in Chapter 9, where it says we can take steps to secure appropriate redress where human rights have been violated. I'm emphasizing that one, to take steps to secure appropriate redress where human rights have been violated. When one interprets that, you realize that where human rights have been violated, the Human Rights Commission has been given powers to correct, take steps to redress where human rights have been violated. And then also the portfolio committee, I should think, is aware that there is a difference of opinion in the judiciary, where two courts have said that the Human Rights Commission does not have binding powers as the public protector. One of the judge in the Mpumalanga division of the High Court said that by saying that the drafters of the legislation tabled the Chapter 9 institution in a chronological order by placing the public protector above the Human Rights Commission. And then the South African Human Rights Commission is following the public protector. But we took the matter on appeal. As I'm talking now, it is in the SCA, the Supreme Court of Appeal, because we strongly feel that the judge erred. In other words, the judge made mistake by saying that the South African Human Rights Commission is lesser or has got lesser powers and functions than the public protector. And the Human Rights Commission, as Commissioner Kam has alluded to, that it has got also powers to litigate. But the Human Rights Commission is not working like an advice center, because this section that I've quoted clearly shows that the Human Rights Commission is not an advice office, but it should correct where a violation has taken place. And I want to end by saying, indeed, in the advent of the wall-to-wall municipalities and the local government is the sphere that is nearest to the community. And then that is why most of the complaints are taken to the local government, or the complaints are against the local government, that the local government is not fulfilling its duties. But colleagues, you will be aware that the recent statistics that was given to our president, Honorable Manta Mela Cyril Ramaphosa, has said that there is a slight shift when looking to the 2022 statistics, that insofar as basic services are concerned, there is a slight improvement. I think it is a result of the work that the Human Rights Commission is doing in the length and breadth of the country, and also the work that the Portfolio Committee is doing in doing its oversight and monitoring. We are serving the same communities. You, honorable members of parliament, holding the executive accountable, and us, the South African Human Rights Commission, being referred as the watchdog, which I always says that as a watchdog, I use the analogy of a dog to say a dog starts by barking when there is some person who is invading a home state. Similarly, the Human Rights Commission starts by sending out warnings where human rights are being violated. And then on the other side of the dog, when a person does not respond to the barking, and then the dog ends by biting. And that is why also us as the Human Rights Commission, as a last resort, when our are not taken care of, and then we fully exercise our constitutional powers as given by the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. I think I want to end there, Commissioner Ntuli. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Sibanyoni, for that. Then Commissioner Nitham, may you then come in on the issues around civil and political rights.
Good morning, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. Good morning, Commissioner Ntuli. Good morning, honorable members and my fellow commissioners, Kaum and Sibanyoni, and also to Peacemore and Commissioner Ntuli. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to raise a few things that I think the first thing also coming out of the report, and I'm sure that honorable members will be having a look at that. The question that arose was like kind of what are the qualifications for an MM or city manager and so on. They are all prescribed qualifications criteria for it. But let me just say what came out of that conference was the whole issue about capacity, the lack thereof, and the not only the lack thereof, but also capacity that's effective and efficient. And one of the issues that were raised in the conference was about how does local government attract, real good qualified people and are competitive in the market space. Because you want to have a good engineer, you have to be competitive in the market space. And hence does appear that the capacity that's lacking within the local government at the technical level is because we lack that a competitive edge in paying those technical people a competitive. One of the issues that we really need to look at is what
Chair, we can't hear the commissioner. It's breaking up, Chair.
I'm not sure.
Sorry.
You can hear him now.
Can you hear me
I
now?
think there was a problem, Commissioner, with you were cutting, but we can hear you now. Can you continue?
My apologies, Chair. I'm in my darling.
Sorry, Chair,
I'm in the rural areas.
Just repeat what he said, because that part is very important that he just said, but we couldn't hear it. Sorry, Chair, to interject.
Okay, I think she is asking to repeat. Okay, continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson here was the whole issue about attracting technical skills that are comparable to the task that they need to fulfill. And in doing so, you need to have market-related remuneration packages. So that is the problem, that a lot of high technical skills, and the skills that you need from engineering to quantity surveyors to, architects, to all of that in local government, town planners, etc. We are not attracting them because we are not in that remuneration space of where a professional with all the technical skills and with the heart and the commitment to work for local government and work for people, we don't find them because we are not from a remuneration point of view, competitive in the market space. So that is one thing that we really need to look at. How do we attract the best and compare the best in terms of remuneration, in terms of the market space, so that we pay a market-related, remuneration that will also curb the corruption and the people that wants to take a chance in faking qualifications coming into the space, the technical capacity, which is so much needed within local government. Chairperson, that's the first thing. Did you get that, Chairperson? Can I continue?
Yes, you may, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Commissioner Ntuli. The second thing, Chairperson, yesterday we had the opportunity to meet with Commissioner Ntuli and ourselves again with the Minister of COCTA and the Deputy Minister and the officials from DG downwards and so on. And the question that's being asked, how do we get here? How did we get here? Chairperson, it is an issue that from an oversight point of view, but also from a public representative point of view, whether, I don't know whether there is still this, that Mondays or Tuesday, that public representatives should be in the constituency and listen to the complaints of the people. Secondly, that also councillors who are at the coalface of the community not come only at election time and we don't see them after that. But the poor knows that you don't have a magic wand to say there'll be houses, there'll be this, there'll be that. But what the poor wants to know and the vulnerable wants to know is that you are listening to them, the representatives are listening to them, the representatives come back to them to say, you've asked us to do A, B, C, D, we could only do A, B will do tomorrow, C will do in next year. And then once you take people along with them and say, this is what we want us to do, and once you service the constituency, to say to people, walk with us on this road, let us listen to you, let us work with you, let me be the voice for you. But sad to say, Chairperson, in many instances, these voices cannot be listened to because the ears are absent and sometimes even scared to get into those communities because we have abandoned those communities. We've abandoned our constituencies. I'm generalizing, Chairperson, but I'm saying, answering the question, how did we arrive at where we are today? Thirdly, Chairperson, it is very important for us to understand that the Batu Pele principles have been abandoned. That is the frontline services of our local government, where our people do not get the kind of services. People stand in long queues, there's no queue management, and people stand in long queues, they don't get answers, and not everybody. Chairperson, it is the issue about pro-poor budgeting. You know, the IDP has become a really, in some instances, just a ticker box. You can't have 30 people from one community that you organize and then say, this is the IDP. And the IDP, I must say, Chairperson, if we have a real hard look at it, it is really not in favor of the vulnerable and the poor communities. It is going towards the suburbs and the affluent societies. So I think that is something that we really need to make the IDP a real inclusive and let people's issues be put on the table and let the public representatives in that area really run with it. Chairperson, then the issue about vandalism. Vandalizing infrastructure. I can take you to communities where the pump stations in terms of sewage have been vandalized. So sewage are running all over the show. I think that is an issue, Chairperson. And therefore, we always say with rights come responsibility. So as the Human Rights Commission, we are also saying to them, you have your rights, but you also have the responsibility to look after that. And people, they see the infrastructure being vandalized. Copper is one of the most exported from this country, not from a mining perspective, but from a scrap yard perspective, because people go and sell it to the scrap yard, and the scrap yards then sell it to those who export it. And so that's the problem that we have. And I think we need to make sure that, we criminalize copper theft. And it should be that scrap yard dealers should be looking at that and making sure that they take the drains from the street. So people driving in the main road or whatever, their car gets knocked, the CV joins, the tires, because somebody have removed that drain to sell to a scrapyard. So I think, Chairperson, that is also, and lastly from my side, Chairperson, I think it's very important that we put into place a mediation or rapid response in terms of where we see the swelling points or the danger points or the points where people are frustrated with regard to whatever issue in terms of socioeconomic rights housing, health, blah, blah, and so on. But that we need to be proactive.
Commissioner gone.
You are muted, Commissioner Nissen.
Can you hear me now, Chairperson?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
you can.
The very last point, I'm sorry that I've gone on this long, but the very last point is just rapid intervention, both from the Commission, which we have done, but also from local government that needs to have somebody in the local government that can talk to people when there's a crisis, because the cost, and Salga will tell you, and I'm sure Chairperson, honorable members, you're fully aware of the cost of a violent protest. If we can prevent it, and we have done that, we have worked with the South African Police Services, we have really tried to prevent destruction of property, particularly local government and municipal properties. And we've really done that, Chairperson. So I think that is the one last thing I want to raise. Chairperson, thank you so much, Commissioner Tuli, and fellow commissioners and honorable members, thank you so much. I'm sorry if I've taken much of your time. My apologies.
Thank you, Commissioner Nissen. No, don't be sorry. You covered some very important key questions. So thank you very much, Commissioner Nissen. Thank you again, honorable members. I'm just reminded that there's a very important question I've missed, which is the question around our relationship with other Chapter 9 bodies, particularly the CRL Rights Commission, but not limited to them. And for that question, our CEO is present with us, and I wonder if I can invite Mr. Mkhize to speak to this question, especially because he sits at the level of a platform we call the FISD, and he sits at the technical FISD, where they meet on a regular basis as heads or CEOs of Chapter 9 bodies to deliberate on common issues that are before and between us as Chapter 9 institutions, and to also explore areas of collaboration. Mr. Mkhize Kabazela, can I please invite you, sir, to just quickly speak to our relationship with other Chapter 9s?
Good morning, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and the honorable members, as well as to the Commissioner, Commissioner Ntuli, and all the commissioners present and our colleagues. Now, thank you very much, Chairperson and Commissioner Ntuli. Yes, there is quite a strong collaboration between the Chapter 9 institutions in terms of devising and looking at the areas of common interest where we can collaborate. We are binded by a structure that is called FISD, which is the Forum of Institutions Supporting Democracy. So that structure is the one where we meet at least on a quarterly basis to look at how we can be able to share the issues that affect human rights and or any other issue that we might be able to collaborate on. And when there will be normally a program that will be then designed and against which we will report on our collaboration and the interventions. This structure then has got a technical team where if, for instance, there are matters that arise and come to the Human Rights Commission, but in fact, upon analysis need to be addressed by CRL, then they would get referred to such an institution so that that particular complaint does not fall between the cracks. If same thing, if there is an issue that the public protector or the AG picks up, but it violates the issue of human rights and within our mandate, then they would refer that. In fact, as we speak now, we have signed with the AG in particular to deal with the issue of referrals between ourselves and the AG, and so that the relationship is further regulated at a bilateral level, not just at a multilateral level. Commissioner Dule. So then the leadership, which we call the principals meeting, would then be given that information. Once we have agreed also on that program of action, which we design, whether we're going to have joint dialogues or joint meetings with the communities or joint conferences, we also agree and say who will then be lead Chapter 9 institution with regard to such a particular issue that is a burning issue affecting human rights. So we have that particular type of very structured, systemic collaboration among ourselves. So I think that is what you had asked me to talk to Commissioner Tuli. But I think if I can just add one aspect, Commissioner Tuli, without delaying the meeting, I believe that as the Commission, the issue of our powers is not something that as a Commission alone we should be fighting for them to be binding. I believe what the chairperson said about we know problems, where to from here, what needs to be done. When our work is ignored and our recommendations are not being implemented, the first people who should be able to assist us is exactly our parliamentarians, because we account to Parliament. And when our then interventions and recommendations are ignored and the loss of life occurs, like in Hammanskraal, the question then is, it's the very same leadership which is constituted by political parties who are running the municipalities. So where is our accountability then in terms of that? That is why our recommendations, we are fighting, as Commissioner Manyon have said, to make sure that they have an effect and they are biting. But we believe that rather than getting to a level of biting, voluntary compliance must be enforced at a level of support by the oversight body, which is Parliament, and particularly the respective portfolio committees responsible for municipalities. In that way, we believe that our efforts will be less spending money on litigation and more focused on core delivery, because our job is to, by constitutional powers, strengthen democracy. And we can only do that if there is support that we get from our oversight committees. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Kabazela. For that, I see that our chairperson is back, and I will then, through yourself, Honorable Chair of the Portfolio Committee, like to hand over to Chairperson Mazola. But before I do, there are just a few other outstanding questions that I want to quickly deal with, and thereafter hand over to Chairperson Majola. Just going all the way back to Honorable Smole, who did raise a very directed question around a complaint that he had raised. Honorable members, I'd like to also refer you to the South African Human Rights Act, particularly Section 18, subsection 5, which reads as such: the findings of an investigation by the Commission must, when it deems fit, but as soon as possible, be made available to the complainant and any person implicated thereby. I read this, honorable members, in relation to the question asked by Honorable Smole, but also as a means to assure you that the Commission does, as a matter of practice, try by all means to communicate with complainants at the stage at which we would finalize each individual complaint according to the complaint handling procedure, which was mentioned and referred to by Commissioner Sibanyoni. However, there are instances, honorable members, where we conduct an inquiry or an investigation based on our observation that the issue at hand may be systemic. And an example of such is the inquiry that was referenced by Honorable smaller. And in that instance, we wait to finalize the inquiry report, and thereafter we issue a provisional report to those who would have been stakeholders, participated, and bear witness to the inquiry, to provide us with comments prior to us making that report a final report. In fact, on Monday, the 16th of October, the Commission will be publicly releasing its findings on our inquiry into water and access to water in the province of Limpopo. Honorable members will have noted that we similarly released our report into the inquiry into water in KwaZulu-Natal about 2 weeks back, and we are doing so similarly in Limpopo. And this question links to the question that was asked by Honorable Eza on our focus on some of the areas, including Emalahleni and Amathole, which are in Mpumalanga and Eastern Cape, respectively. Similarly, Honorable Eza, what we do is we conduct our work through the national office, but also, especially in order to reach our local communities through our various provincial offices. And through those provincial offices, we conduct the investigations, and many of our investigative reports, especially pertaining to service delivery, are led by the provincial offices. So in Emalahleni, for example, we have finalized our report into service delivery issues in Mpumalanga, and that one will follow the release of the report in Limpopo, where you will then find our observation and the outcomes of our investigations pertaining to Emalahleni and other local municipalities in the province. With regards to the DDM, the question on the DDM, Honorable Spies, this is a very important one. As a commission, we have welcomed the notion of the DDM, noting especially the challenges that have been observed with regards to coordination of the functions of local government institutions. This culture that has developed of working in silos, we had thought that the DDM model was going to address it by not only assisting in coordinating the function of local municipalities within one area or within one district jurisdiction, but also providing the necessary oversight and working with the offices of the premiers to realize the aspirations of Chapter 3 of the Constitution related to intergovernmental relations and the importance of having these three spheres working together in a seamless and coordinated manner. And you would have noted, honorable members, those who have interacted with our report into water in KwaZulu-Natal, that we have placed emphasis on the need to strengthen the DDM model, the function of the DDM, and to ensure that through the DDM, we also see some critical interventions into the crisis that we are seeing at local government level. Then there was this issue which was very well addressed by Commissioner Nissen on how did we get here, Honorable Eza. Honorable members, there's an elephant in the room, which is the assumptions that would have been made by the white paper on local government. And one of those main assumptions, of course, would have been that the leaders who are put into positions would be ethical leaders who have a love for their communities and who are dedicated
Colleagues,
to...
am I the only one who cannot hear Commissioner Ntuli?
You might be the only one. We can hear.
Okay. No,
continue, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. One of the other key assumptions was the sustainability of local government institutions. The idea of a developmental agenda and a developmental local government sphere says that the local government sphere will sustain itself by one, collecting revenue, but also leading through local economic development. And we are seeing in our observations of the crisis on the ground that many municipalities are depending on grants to survive. They are struggling to sustain themselves through revenue collection. And that puts a strain on our ability to say that we can realize the aspirations of the white paper on local government. So some of the problems are policy related. We do need to begin to reflect on where we are in terms of our thinking around local government, even before we even begin to add other municipalities. The conversation about adding other municipalities has to be preceded by a conversation around the efficacy of the model that we have now vis-a-vis the assumptions that would have been made by the white paper on local government. Are we moving in the direction that we had wanted to move to? If not, what are the challenges and how do we address them? Then lastly, before I hand over to Chairperson Majola, is the last elephant in the room, which is urban migration, rapid urban migration. Honorable Aba Jaba, you asked about hijacked buildings. The issue of hijacked buildings is a multi-pronged problem, at the center of which is rapid and rampant urban migration. We are seeing projections are telling us that by the year 2030, almost 70% of our national population is going to be in urban areas. Now, of course, that has implications not just for the availability of land and where people will live, but also what people will be eating, where people will be working, and also their access to basic services, including water and electricity. And this speaks to urban planning. It speaks to the undoing of apartheid era special planning. It also speaks to the question of whether local government institutions are ready to face this urban migration. The issue of hijacked buildings, at the center of it is the question of who owns this building and what is their responsibility to secure the building and to take care of the building. The disaster that happened in Johannesburg in Marshalltown about a month ago brought to question some of these very, very important questions that say, when municipalities are owning these buildings, and it is their responsibility to secure the buildings and to take care of their buildings, what happens when they do not do that? And what then becomes of the human rights violations that take place within those buildings as a result of the negligence of the public institution? And these are some of the questions and problems that we are hoping that together with yourselves as an institution that is established to provide oversight and to also ensure the question of accountability, we can think together, work around so that we can be better prepared for some of the aspirations of the National Development Plan for 2030, looking at where we are today. Thank you very much, honorable members. I will now hand over to Chairperson Majola to round up our responses as a commission. Over to you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. Thank you for the questions that you have raised. We certainly will continue to reflect on those questions and suggestions. We again wish to appreciate the fact that you gave us the audience. If I may just add a little bit to what the CEO, Mr. Mkhize, said, the FISD has actually gone to the extent of requesting the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly to organize a meeting that will include the chairs of portfolio committees to, talk about the whole issue of the recommendations that Chapter 9 institutions make. Because we find that some of the recommendations the departments do not agree with, then we understand they are non-implementation. But many other recommendations the departments say, yes, we agree this should happen, but then it doesn't happen. And we think that with the help of the oversight bodies over the executive, the portfolio committees, we could, in that meeting, come to an agreement that where a department says, yes, we accept this recommendation, it's the right thing to do, that then the portfolio committee would then from time to time call the head of the department and say, you agree with this, what is holding you from implementing it? Because many of these recommendations that are not disputed are still not implemented, and our people therefore eventually suffer because of non-delivery of services. But besides that, I'd like to reiterate our gratitude for the opportunity. I'd like to thank the members for their time, and I'd like to thank my colleagues for fielding all the questions that were raised. We learned something from the encounter, and we hope that we will again, if need arises, get an opportunity to come and share ideas with the honorable members and learn from their wisdom. Thank you, Chairperson. May I wish you all a wonderful weekend. And those that are traveling, we pray for your safety.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and commissioners. And I am making an assumption, honorable members, that there will be no follow-up questions. If it happens that there's any member who would want to raise that, but I would like on your behalf to respond to the closing comments by the chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission to say, whilst we were raising questions, we're equally aware of our responsibility, first as public representatives, and number two, as an extension of the Office of the Speaker doing oversight. So our interaction, it was both beneficial to us as well as yourselves, as you have indicated, but I'm sure that becomes our primary responsibility. So we have learned a lot from one, the documents that have been received, the presentation, and the responses to some of the questions that were raised by members. And I'm definitely sure we will invite you in the near future, because I think everybody is concerned about the non-responsiveness to some of the demands which are needs of the people, which can be translated into rights. And we would want to respond collectively, so especially Parliament, because like you are saying, you might agree with the executive on this and that, but when it is not carried out, it becomes a problem. So with those remarks, I think we have taken notes, we have taken the documents. Fortunately, we are at a stage where we have just received the audit outcomes of the Public Finance Management Act. We are engaging the departments as well as entities reporting to it. There are recommendations from the Auditor General as to how should we develop our own action plan. And I'm sure this is going to enrich that action plan to help us to intervene on behalf of the people. With those few remarks, thank you very much. We also wish you a good coming weekend. Thank you very much. Can we adjourn the meeting? If there's nothing.
There's nothing, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned then.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Goodbye.